purpose of this video is to explain how we set up the Insight vision system for our project. So once you have kind of gone through the first part, getting connected, you'll want to open up, down here it says Easy Builder, but you can kind of toggle back and forth in the same spot. View, you want to go to Spreadsheet View. So once you've opened up Spreadsheet View, you'll kind of see something similar to this. If you have our project open, this is what you'll see. So up here is just kind of the lighting settings and the focus settings. The lens that we used does not allow for autofocus, so you will physically need to focus the camera. But once that's focused, it's pretty easy. You really just kind of set up a continuous trigger. You set up your exposure somewhere, I'd say between 10 and 12. And all of this is explained in the literate programming. But we'll kind of go over here. Kind of ignore a lot of this stuff. But down here is where your calibration is stored. And again, calibration is explained in the literate programming. But you might notice here is kind of a lot of this blue text, and you'll see kind of a little spreadsheet section here where it says the pattern, train, row, column, angle, scale, score. This is kind of just labeled for our knowledge. This is where we set up each of the parts. So you can kind of see things pop up in the background. If I click on this again, it'll pop up over here. Some of these other patterns. And as you scroll through, you'll see, well, first we'll toggle this off. You see I have several parts in the workspace right now. So they may be identified, should be identified in the spreadsheet. So here, this first one, 666443. You can see right here, this first pattern was identified. And that's, you can see this part is this part. Go a little bit further down. You see this other part right here. Also identified. Now I'll quickly show you how to set this up. I explained it in the literate programming, but I'll kind of show you really quickly right here. So each time we set up, it's train max pattern. So to do that, right click or double click and go to edit function. You want to toggle off the spreadsheet. Your image will always be A0 because that's where this image is stored every time you click the trigger. Down in fixture, we'll keep this all as 0. In this case now, if you link different location objects, that's when you would use that fixture. So pattern region. Now for the pattern region, this is similar to the model region, like in Easy Builder. So in the Easy Builder, we have model region and search region. And in here, it's called pattern region for the model region. So we're going to want to line up our top left-hand corner with the top left-hand corner of the part. And you kind of just do that by typing in some different values. So we're going to try 320, and we'll try 680, maybe even, we'll try 700. Oops, 700, and we'll go back to 315. Well, actually 310, try 710. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then you would change your height and width accordingly. So obviously, you know, ours already looks pretty good, but just to kind of show you, it'll change the height, 500, change the width. Okay, and we'll just pretend that that is perfect. We go down to the next part now. Let's actually, we'll go back. What was that? I was at 350, 250. Yeah, about. Okay. So whenever you set these up, you're going to want your center point right on top of the actual center point for the part, especially when you take your first picture right in the center of the workspace, because that one is really going to set you up for the rest of the project. Okay, and then down here, pattern origin. This will only be used when you take pictures in the corners. Generally, we did not use it at all, but you can use it, and the purpose is, I'll show you, if you were to put this in the corner, just imagine this part in the corner. We'll do an offset of -50 and -50. As you see, our center point has been shifted over here. So if it was down in this corner, we wanted the center point to be closer to the center, just based off of the fact that we're using a 2D vision system for a 3D application. You sometimes need to implement things like offsets. Like if you see this this part right here, if we were to set this up, because of the angle it's taken at, there would kind of need to be a slight offset implemented, but we really didn't utilize this because it wasn't enough of a problem that it really needed to be addressed. So once you're done, you're going to click OK. I'm going to click cancel because I've already set up the part. And we can toggle back to our spreadsheet view. So I'm going to go a little further down, show you another part here. So Insight has the ability to distinguish between very similar parts. And so as you see here, this part was set up as breaker, and it's kind of highlighted the difference, the 20 versus the 25. And if you look in our spreadsheet, the interesting thing about it, though, is it first identifies the location of the pattern, and then after locating the pattern, you can set up distinguishable factors. And so we here have identified the 20, and down here it says it doesn't identify the 20. But I'll show you kind of how to do that. So for OCR Max, it's similar to read text in Easy Builder. So you'll want to double click on this or right click and edit. You will move your region similar to just kind of the search region, model region. You'll want to move that right around wherever your text is. So what we did here, we have it in that spot every time. We have it linked to the specific fixture, which is the breaker itself. And once you've done that, you'll come down here and you'll train your string. Just type in 20 and then you can train it. Kind of go over here and train it. So we'll go from here. Train the font. If we go in here, we've already set it up, but you would type in the 20 and click train, and then you would see as those pop up. And you can move this around the board and kind of take pictures in multiple areas just to make sure. Sometimes when lighting changes, it may not pick those up perfectly. Once that's done, you click OK, and you've set up your OCR Max. And so this can distinguish the different numbers, which is very important with these super similar parts, because otherwise you would kind of be changing your score. So just to quickly explain what a score is, I go up to find another part that was identified. So every time a part's identified, it's given a score of how closely the pattern matches to the image. And so click that back on. So this picture and that picture, the comparison was given an 81, whereas with this one in the corner, it was given a 61. And so the score really just is how close the two images are. And you can have a threshold when you find a pattern that says you will only want to take things with a score over 60, over 80, over whatever. So we kept ours at about 50, which we found was fine, and worked for most parts. Some parts may need higher scores depending on how close the part is to another part. So for this breaker, it wasn't an issue because it's very unique in our parts set. But some parts would require a higher score. And so the score, so if you were to have parts that are very, very similar, you may want to have above an 80 or something, and then the tiniest little differences within parts would be very important. Okay, so once you've kind of found your pattern, and you can look at that really quick using the Find Pat Max pattern. You see it found it here, but you want to kind of in the pattern section, you want to link it to the cell of the pattern you're using, and you want to set up your find region. Similar to the search region in Easy Builder, the find region, you're going to want that to be your entire workspace. So starting at the top left-hand corner, 0, 0, and then going down to the bottom corner, which is 1200 and 1600. And we've already established that, so you can just use that exact same set of numbers for every part you set up. And then here's the acceptance. That's what I was talking about earlier. Kind of the acceptance would be related to the score. Here, you can read that. And then contrast would be kind of more related to the lighting, but that can also be altered to allow for more flexibility or less flexibility identifying parts. The other thing you're going to want to do is in the tolerances, there's the angles that you set up, and this is just saying if the image you set up is rotated negative 180 to 180 degrees, it will still be identified. In some applications, you may not want to implement rotation, but in our application, it's very important. So every single part that we set up has a tolerance of negative 180 degrees to 180 degrees. And so once that's done, you click OK. Now the next thing is the trans fixture to world, and this is your calibrating to real world coordinates. So here we have all pixel values, and down here we have the robot coordinates. And so that is just done by linking your calibration object, which in our case it's in cell Y50, to the fixture. And so that's basically just take the row, column, degree value, and you calibrate it. And that's it. Pretty easy. And that was used, as you can see, in every single part. So for us, every single part we set up then needed to be implemented in our write device. So our write device is what we use to send the data on to be used by the robot. So setting up the right device here, starting at A0. A0 is the image, and then each of these, or A196 is the device. But all of these here are the cell values. So you can see actually it's highlighting them. It's the cell values where we get our concatenated data of the part location, so the row, the column, and the degree of rotation, which is sent right up here when a part passes. And so every single one of those cells is right in here. And that's very important because otherwise you will not identify all of your parts. So the device, we have a TCP device. This is our IP address. And honestly, I think that's about it. From here, would be sent on to another part of the system, which is explained in the literate programming. In all of this, I'll go into more detail in literate programming. This is just kind of a brief overview of our project and how we set it up. So if you have questions, you can kind of refer to the Insight Explorer help, or you can kind of go to our tutorials in our literate programming section.